Hello folks, it's yet another beautiful winter's day here in Ontario. It's another refreshing one. I've got enough layers of clothing on here, as my father-in-law would have said, to head to the Arctic. But as you can see, we have hardly any snow, really no snow on the ground. But as I understand, that's about to change tonight and tomorrow, because the forecast is calling for a 100% chance of 40 centimeters of snow and some pretty good winds, so it'll be drifting as well. Well, I've got a nice fire on in the furnace in the shop. Let's head on in and see what we're going to work on today. Well folks, today's video is all about making snowshoe bindings. But before we get started, I want to tell you a little story about some of these snowshoes in front of me. Back when I was a boy, I worked for a neighboring farmer, and in 1972, he gave me these snowshoes. They were his. And if I remember correctly, they might have been his father's before him. They're very special. Obviously the lacing here was totally shot. When I was a boy I cut it off. I wish I hadn't, so I had a pattern, but someday when I retire I hope to get some very fine rawhide lacing and to relace these snowshoes. I'll never use them because they're too precious to me. This old gentleman that gave me these, he was one of those people that when God places him in your life, he enriches your life. He had a big influence on me, and he meant the world to me. I want to show you something on these snowshoes that's incredible. Check out the lacing on the heel and on the toe. It's more like artwork than snowshoe lacing. It's so intricate and fine, delicate, and incredibly well done. Isn't that amazing? I bet there's quite a story to whoever did that and how many years ago. This pair of snowshoes also means a lot to me. They were my dad's. Obviously the bindings on these, I need to make some bindings for these because they dried up and cracked and fell off. Just like this rawhide here, oh my goodness, it needs some varnish so bad. And before they ever get used, I will definitely give them some love and give them some varnish. The snowshoes that are up there, those are my wife's when she was a little girl. And I actually have back at our camp the snowshoes I had as a boy that I wore, a lot like them. Back when I was a kid, everybody bought snowshoes at Canadian Tire. And here's some new snowshoes. These are ones that I've made. I've used to make the more conventional style snowshoe. I adopted this a few years ago, kind of because it was getting difficult for me to get really good, clear, straight grained ash that I could take, because you need about a 7-foot piece to bend for a snowshoe, for this style of snowshoe. So I adopted this style. And I sure enjoy making them, and when I get into retirement some year, or quite a few years from now yet, I hope to make more snowshoes. Well, you'll notice here, there's a set of bindings. These are the style of bindings that I make. It's just that it's a nylon webbing that somebody gave me, and I didn't design them or create them. I just sort of copied a couple of designs I saw on the internet, and this is what I came up with. So let's head over here to the workshop, or to the workbench. It's a little closer to the furnace too. I've still got many layers of clothing on, as you can see. And let's start making some bindings. This lacing design is really simple. It's just 4 pieces of 3/4 inch nylon webbing. First is the heel strap. Goes around the back of your boot. The next one is a toe cover, or a sort of a modified toe strap. All it does is stop your foot from sliding too far forward. And then there's the large toe strap that goes around the snowshoe and your boot. And then there's a heel strap buckle to tighten everything in once you're in position. Let's go over here and we'll cut some nylon and start making some pieces. I use a pair of side cutters to cut the webbing. And I made some marks on my bench here. 6-inch, 10, 22.5, and 25. And those are the different lengths of pieces I need to cut. It just makes it a lot faster. So for a 25-inch piece, I just do that, take my side cutters, go clicky, then I'm done. To cut the 22.25, I really just do the same thing. It is not rocket science. My, that nylon is tough. I suppose that's a good thing. I just use a torch to melt the ends of the nylon webbing. It doesn't take a lot of heat, and I turn my flame way down. And our goal is to completely melt it. We don't want to burn it, but we want to make sure that we do have good fusion between all the little nylon threads. Can you imagine going all the work to make a set of bindings, and then after the first time you use them, the ends start to unravel? There we go. That's done. Pretty simple. Next step, we need to melt some holes in our webbing. When I first started out, I made up these templates for each of the pieces, and I would use a Sharpie and I would put a little mark on the nylon webbing. Then I'd take an electrode, a 7018 or something, and grind the end, warm it with a torch, and melt it through like that, and it worked fine, but it was kind of a cumbersome and slow process. So then I made up these little jigs. All it is a piece of scrap 2x4, some hardboard on it, and I have holes drilled in the 2x4 where I want to burn the holes in the webbing, and I also have those lines showing me where I'm going to melt it. I simply take my nylon webbing, press it in the hardboard, it holds it in place for me, and instead of using this electrode, I got an old soldering iron that was probably my father's, and I machined the end, and I use it to actually melt the webbing. It works really slick. Hold it in place, put it over top of where I think the hole is, and push, wiggle, there we go. There's a hole done. We'll do another one. There's a hole done. I feel like singing, there's a hole in my webbing, dear Liza, dear Liza. Wow, that's getting corny, isn't it? There. 4 holes melted in the right place with the aid of an old soldering iron. I'm just going to work through all the other pieces and then we'll move on to the next step. The next step is to rivet the loops and the buckles in place. We're going to use these rivets and these burrs. I believe they're normally used for working with leather. I bought them years ago. Actually, I got quite a number of them in a package. So I'm sure if you're looking for them, you can just go on the internet and find them. Anyhow, when I make my loops here, when I put the buckles in place, I always try and have the nicest side showing. So this side looks a little rougher where I melted the holes in, so I'll turn it that way. I'll turn that side in. And I always put the base of the rivet against my boot, or where it's going to ride on my boot. I think it looks nicer. I also think it's probably a little smoother. And if I was wearing leather boots or something very expensive, it might be a little easier on the face of my boot. Now sometimes these rivets are hard to push through those holes we melted. That's a good thing. We don't want them too loose. There we go. We've got a rivet on. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to push this burr in place. Now these burrs, the way they're popped out, they have a square edge and one side it's just a little bit more rounded. I like to put the rounded side up. I think it looks a little better. And maybe I'm just being overly fussy. But as my father-in-law would have said, always do your best. Because there's going to be a lot of times in your life when even that's not good enough. Okay, so the burr is on top of the rivet. I've got the place. Boy, somebody really wants to talk to me, don't they? My phone's going beep, 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 beep. There, we've set the rivet in place. We've set the burr in place. Now we're going to cut off the excess rivet. I just use my good old side cutters. And you know what? These side cutters I've had for a long time. I bought them at Sears. They're Craftsman. Okay, so we want about 1/8 of an inch of rivet left when we're finished. So, whoop, there we go. And there's our piece of rivet left. Now we're going to peen that over. I'm going to use the tool to seat that burr again, just to make sure it's in the right place. And then I'm going to use the peening tool. I usually take it down about that far with the peening tool. I give it a little love with the ball peen hammer. And then I dress it up again with the peening tool. Doesn't that look nice? The base is pulled in. The burr is pulled down a little bit. It's nice and tight. And we've got a nice riveted finish. So now I'm just going to turn this over, put another rivet in this side, and rivet all the rest of them together. Well folks, my phone's been beeping. Got some text messages. I'm going to have to go look after a few things. So all we've really got left on this one binding to do is to rivet this buckle strap together. So I'll come out another night, we'll put this together, and then I'll show you how you install these on the snowshoes. Hello folks. Well, once again this evening on this cold winter's eve, I'm reminded of what a blessing some of the basics in life can be. Like heat blowing out of this furnace on this cold night. Our weather since we last spoke has taken quite a change. At the beginning of this video I told you that we had hardly any snow on the ground. Well, that changed 2 days later. We got a record-breaking snowfall, and along with that some pretty cold temperatures. And yet today the temperature rocketed up to about 5 degrees. My goodness, it was warm and the snow melted. And tonight it's going the other way like a rocket ship. It's plummeting down, supposed to reach -20 by 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. And there's a brisk northwest wind, so we're supposed to have quite a wind chill. It's a good night to be inside here, finishing off some snowshoe bindings. Well, I said tonight we'd put some buckles on. Before we start, I want to show you a tool. And of course, like most of my things, it has a story. This is the riveting tool I was using earlier in the video when I was putting together the bindings. And I knew I had somewhere put away an old riveting tool my father gave me. And you know those special places that we put those special things we don't want to lose? Well, I actually remembered where this one was and I found it. This was my father's riveting tool. I'll bet it's old enough to vote, to say the least. And I took it to a wire wheel, and the only thing I can read on it is something Johnson and number 3. The rest, I can't read. Anyways, it's kind of neat to know that my father, he used this tool, and I wondered what he worked on when he did. So just like before, we look at our webbing, we determine the good side, and we place it up. We slide a buckle in place. We fold it over. And now we put a rivet in. Time for a burr. And of course we put the burr on, the rounded side up. And this is where I get to use my father's tool. Let's seat that burr. Oh! Boop! And this is where I get to use my father's tool. Let's seat that burr. There we go. Cut it off. I might have left a bit much there. And just like before, I start the peening process with the hammer actually. This is where I get to use my father's tool again, and we'll just tidy up the rivet head. There we go. Nice and smooth, and a nice smooth area here to ride on our boot. Now we've got the bindings made, let's put them on the snowshoes. And I've got to tell you, for this old guy, This is like a bit of a Tetris puzzle every time I do it. Although there's only 4 pieces, I kind of forget how they go together. So let's do it and see if I can get it right this time. First thing we do is we take our heel strap here and we slide on the toe covers. And of course we always face the riveted part up, so the smooth part is what rides against our boots. There we go. That part's done. Then we take the buckle strap, slide it on the toe strap, and pull it through. This is the fun part. We slide it down through the snowshoe with the buckles facing up again. We pull it around and under and up through the corresponding hole on the far side. And around again. Golly, that's hard to pull up. Just take a little bit of that slack up. There we go. Toe strap is ready. And we've got to put the heel strap on here first. It attaches in this buckle. And then we can adjust onto the back of our boot and our heels with this buckle. And there we go. That's a set of bindings on a snowshoe. There we go, folks. We're done. If I told you I started this video a year ago, would you believe me? Because I did. But I deleted all those sections because I barely got started and just, you know how life is. Life gets in the way and this wasn't a real high priority. And I got to tell you that this is a real blessing for me. My job is high stress, fast pace, lots of phone calls, emails, text messages, people dropping in, and it's all good. But to get out here with that furnace blowing heat on a cold winter's night is absolutely wonderful. Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again on Out of the House Report.